CHaNT, Cognitive Hypno-Neuro Therapy, Rewiring the Mind and Restoring the Self with CHaNT, C-H-A-N-T. We are here with Ivan Rose. Ivan, could you please tell us what is CHaNT?
Yeah, hello. CHaNT is, as you just said, is cognitive hypno and neurotherapy. And it's a therapy that I've developed over the past several years, actually. And it involves, as it says, cognitive reframing, so that we can actually reframe the things that we say in our mind and think more logically and less emotionally. It involves hypnotherapy and neuroscience, and it's a training for practitioners. And how I discovered it was I wrote a book called 3 Steps to Sanity. And in my practice, I realized that most people that were struggling with their mental health, in fact, all people virtually, they're all thinking very emotionally. They have a very emotional based thinking. So I decided that I would try to create some rules to help them become more logical, so they lived in less drama and they just had better decision making. And then one day I was sat down and I sort of realized, look, there's only 3 areas to your mental health. And the first area is, how do you manage your inner dialogue, your self-talk, which is why I created these cognitive rules. The second area is the relationship you have with yourself, because, if you love yourself, you'll have self-trust, self-acceptance, self-value, self-belief.
Yeah.
And the third area is how much trauma do you have? And as I progressed with this in my practice, I started using this premise, and I started to bring in neuroscience into it, and I started using anchoring and reframing, and it started to work really very well. And one of my specialists was always dealing with trauma, and I use hypnoanalysis, and for those who don't know what that is, it's root cause clearance. And it was designed or created by Sigmund Freud, but the Freudian version was lots of sexual connotations, lots of things that are very outdated now. So I started to modernize it. And as time went on, I sort of by accident realized that I've actually created a modality here. But what happened, I did a presentation actually to help to rehabilitate some prisoners. And the lady there at the end, the manager, asked me what the title of the meeting was, what the presentation title is, and I got a bit confused, and I said, I don't know. 3 Steps to Sanity. And as I thought about it more and more, as I said, I realised it's a modality. So it's a modern version of therapy, and I found that most therapists, or most hypnotherapists, or a lot of them, they're trained to do hypnotherapy, and they do a great job by and large. It's fantastic if somebody wants to quit smoking, if somebody wants to lose weight, if somebody wants to be more motivated, it's fantastic. But a lot of it doesn't go deep enough. And so many people have deeper issues, much more than just their presenting problem. And so I like to deal with people's underlying issue. And so I created CHaNT, and it's for practitioners, trained practitioners who want to go deeper, who want to help people absolutely change. And it's very well fitting actually with the identity that I was speaking with you about earlier.
Yes.
Creating this new identity and healing people from within, rather than just resolving one issue, and then of course they may get another issue. If you don't resolve the underlying issue, then you're more likely to get more problems again. And that's where I'm at. So I've spent a lot of work and effort into this, and neuroscience is magnificent, because it just shows us that we can reinvent ourselves. We can create new versions of ourselves. We don't have to be who we used to be. We are products of our upbringings and our environments. Well, we can create new environments. We don't live the same as adults as we did when we were children.
Yes.
Yet many of us, or many people, continue with the same behaviors because they don't really know any different.
Correct.
And so yeah, so my goal is to arm therapists with this wonderful new modality. Oh, and inside the modality, I also created something called TBT, which is, I call it time bomb therapy. And I realized that a lot of people are anxious about future events. And in fact, my son said to me, he said, "Dad, I've got this toothache in my wisdom tooth." And I said to him, "Well, don't leave it because it'll get worse. It's a ticking time bomb." And suddenly the idea came to me. And so using neuroscience and cognitive reframing, we can actually deal with things before they happen. We can reframe how we perceive things, and it doesn't matter whether you're fearful of getting old or having no money, or if you're frightened for surgery or something like that. We are what we tell ourselves we are, and with neuroscience, we know that we can reframe it and create new neural pathways and create new neuroplasticity, and that changes everything. So we are all in control of our own destiny by what we tell ourselves, by what we teach ourselves. And of course, the aspect to it where you develop a relationship with yourself is so critical. If someone doesn't like themselves, then they're never going to be happy, and they're never going to have high levels of confidence and self-esteem. And so again, my goal here is to clear traumas in a modern way. I use bridging and chapter technique for that, and I brought neuroscience into it. But just quickly on the TBT, the time bomb therapy, I've experimented with hypnotherapy. So I would sit down with a client, find all the things that they're worried about in the future, get them into a hypnotic state, and then reframe and change how they see all those things coming towards them. So it works on every level. It works to clear the past. It works on, making sure that the present is in a good place, you're in good shape in the present, and that your future self is also going to be good too.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And you are correct. This is modern therapy, and this is exactly what's needed. You need to get to the bottom of it. You need to get to the core of the problem. And the core of the problem is people need to feel good about who they are. If they don't like themselves, then they're not going to be happy. They don't have confidence, and they do need to get there. And I like where this is going, and it's yay, congratulations. So how many years did it take you to this?
Well, I think I've sort of developed. I found it by accident, as I said, but I've developed it over sort of probably the last 5 to 6 years. The other thing that I think is important is that we help young people, because, and you probably found this in your practice, that we're getting people 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, and as we all know, these issues come in the teenage years. You don't all of a sudden get these problems a bit older. They tend to come in early. And so if we could get CHaNT practitioners to help younger people, teenagers or young people, then you are going to help them in their adult life, because it's very unpleasant, isn't it, for people to suffer for so many years. And so I'm hoping that that people will embrace this wonderful therapy, and help people live better, live healthier. Look, we've got one shot at life. We get one life that we're aware of, and let's make it the best. If you've got poor mental health, then you're not going to have an easy life. It doesn't matter how successful you are. It doesn't matter how much money you've got. It doesn't matter how physically fit you are. If you've got poor mental health, you've got nothing. Have you, Carmen?
You are correct. You just got it. You hit the nail on the head. But you brought something very important: teenagers, and teenagers, they are forming who they are. They are developing their identity, and if they don't know yet who they are, they've been conditioned to be who they are up until now. You go to school, I mean, before school, parents tell you, do this, don't do that, don't do that. And you hear more of what not to do instead of what to do. And you go to school and you study and you have to get good grades, and then you work hard for it. You get good grades, you're a good student. And then you do more school, and then eventually you get a job. But teenaging, there's such a fragile time in personhood in our life. A lot of things happen, hormonal changes, they just cascade during early teenagehood, and that impacts the neuroscience, impacts the brain, impacts the plasticity, it impacts how teenagers feel about themselves and about their environment. And you're right, it's very important to work with teenagers and help them get to know themselves.
Absolutely. Well, I created the Mr. Ivan app, which is designated just for teenagers to help them think better. The thing is that, the best way I like to explain to people about neuroscience is, if we imagine that we're all living in a movie, our life is a movie, and we're writing our own scripts. Mm-hmm. And so if we're stuck in a loop, a loop of negativity or a loop of trauma, we're just going to keep replaying that same loop round and round again. And people wonder why they get the results that they don't want, because they're kind of asking for them. You can't expect to see a change if you don't make one. And the problem that teenagers face, it's changed over the last few years with social media and school, and there's cyberbullying, there's identity issues, they're changing physically, so there's physical issues, there's a lot going on, and the suicide rate and self-harm rate amongst teenagers now, it's pretty shocking. It's got very, very serious. Yes. And as you know, I'm from the UK. It's very serious here. It's very serious in the US as well, and I'm sure all around the world. Yes. So I think a lot more could be done to help teenagers. Education in schools could be changed. But the bottom line, I think the message that I really want to get out to people is change is so possible. Is so there. It's like anything, people can change their lounge by redecorating. They can change their image by, dyeing their hair or wearing different clothes or losing weight or gaining weight or whatever. Change is possible, but change in the mind, people don't see the challenges people suffer because it's internal. Often people say to me, well, one of my questions in the assessment is, how's your confidence? And a lot of people often say to me, well, people wouldn't know it because they think I'm confident, but really I'm not. So behind the eyes, it holds a lot of issues, a lot of things going on, and we can't see it. So if someone is suffering, they will suffering quietly. But if they knew, if they were empowered, prevention is always better than cure.
Correct. You are correct. And especially mental health, especially post-pandemic, teenagers, young adults are the rate of anxiety and depression on teenagers and young adults is just skyrocketed, and they feel so isolated. And I work with a few teenagers, and of course I do straight identity. But it's very important, as you said, to tackle the mental health aspect, because if you don't feel good into who you are, then you're not going to be confident, you're not going to be happy in life. And as this particular teenager told you that they are confident, but other people don't see them as confident, then we still need to work on that a little bit so other people see them as confident, because it's important to their relationships.
Mm. Yeah, so for the cognitive reframing, I've created some thinking rules, because I thought to myself, everywhere you go in this world, there are rules. There's rules on the road, rules at schools, rules at universities, rules in the family, rules in the government, everywhere you go. And yet we all have these options running around in our mind and no rules to manage them. And if you think about it, when I first discovered this about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I sat down and thought, am I really saying that no one's thought of this before? I mean, surely it just seems so obvious. And also when you look at any business, again, any business in the world, including the military, the government, including, well, even even schools and colleges, they do not make emotional decisions. They make decisions based on logic. And so I've developed these 11 thinking rules, and one of them is about letting go of anything that you're powerless to, because people spend too much time trying to control things that they're powerless to. Make your decisions using facts, evidence, truth, and proof. Don't guess, don't assume, because you're always going to be wrong. You wouldn't go to court and a judge say, well, you look like a nice person, I'll let you off. They look at the evidence and the facts. Yet people assume too much, too quickly, and predict events that aren't true. Accepting who you are. You can change who you are, of course. We talked about that, but you have to accept who you are. You have to accept all your circumstances and everything around you. Expectations is another one. If people are perfectionists, I think perfectionism causes a lot of people a lot of problems. Because I don't know about you, Carmen, but I've never met anyone who can do better than their best.
Correct.
And so really, we should just focus on being our best.
Correct.
I've got some other rules: flexibility of thinking, and another thing that I'd like to share actually with people is, don't hold your feelings in. When you hold your feelings in, it's one of the things that people with depression all have in common. They don't release their feelings, they get stuck, and then they go down and down. So, go off, don't wait for it to trigger on someone else either. Go out on your own somewhere and have a rant, have a shout, talk your feelings out, shout them if you need to, but just release them. It's so important. And some other rules, which I won't go into now, but these are just simple cognitive rules with reframing that can make a huge difference, massive difference, because it just teaches people to think logically, not emotionally. You'll make much better decisions. Life will be much easier, and you'll be a lot happier.
You are correct. What I want to add to it, letting your emotions out, it has to be done in a proper way. If you need to shout to let your emotions out, don't shout at another person.
Mm-hmm.
Don't throw your emotions on another person, because it's not the other person's fault. The other persons, they do the best they can, right? So when we need to release our emotions, we do it in a healthy, proper way, in a way in which it doesn't hurt another person. So don't hurt another person, but let your emotions out. And there's just so many techniques to work through that, to let your emotions out. So usually Latin people are hot-blooded. They talk loud and they yell a lot, and other people would think, oh my God, you're shouting. It's like, no, that's how I talk normally. So yes.
No, absolutely, and that's the point. You set time aside, don't you, to vent? You set time aside for it where you are on your own, because otherwise people just, as you said, people just get triggered, and then you upset somebody else, and then you're making your situation worse,
Yes.
not better.
Yes.
And so there are, like everything in life, there are rules to everything. There's physics, and there's rules to how we would write, how we would type, how we would ride a bike. We've got rules, so let's use the rules that give us a better life and give us better mental health. Because the thing is, and I'm going to exclude mental illness here, of course, but there's no need in 2025 for people to have poor mental health, and it's just really down to a lack of education, and a lack of knowledge, a lack of sharing, sharing with the world and telling people and letting people know.
Yes. So, Ivan, where can people learn more about CHaNT?
Yeah, well, it's on the website. It's called chantmethod.com. There's information on there. You can get in touch. There's a contact page on there also. But yes, absolutely. I encourage people just to go to the website, say chantmethod.com, and have a look, have a read. And if it's something that resonates with you, then please do get in touch with me. You can book a call with me, or you can send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to share more information about this and to share this wonderful knowledge. And just quickly, one of the beautiful things about this is it's simple. It's simplified mental health. Mental health doesn't have to be complicated.
Yes.
And I think in many places, many situations, it becomes too complex. And a lot of people feel like it's out of their league to understand it all, but it's not like that at all. Very simple.
Yes. Very good. Very good. That's very good information. And I hope a lot of people are going to take this in consideration and learn more about your CHaNT method, because it is very, very important. Anything else you want to share with us, Ivan?
No, just to say that I've written 10 books, got an app for teenagers, and that all this knowledge comes from, apart from the training, of course, that I've done, but all this knowledge comes from experience. And I've practiced this in my practice here, day in, day out, for many years. So it absolutely works very, very well. And as I said, more than happy to share any information. If anybody wants to know more, do please get in touch.
All right, and we're going to put the link in the comments on how to contact Ivan. And Ivan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you so much. Thank you.